Hey guys, Carrie here. Went out and took some pictures of the comet last night, and I got an idea to make a video about the post-processing of what I do for my astronomy tours. So the software that I use is really old, but it'll show you the concepts for that is used in even newer software and stuff now. But so the first thing that I do is take my original images, which is on the left here, and make a copy folder. I'll just open a folder and name it copy, and then copy those images into that folder so that I'm not working with the original images. In case something goes wrong, then I still have the original images and they're nice and safe. And so we'll leave those alone and we'll work with the copies here. So one of the first things that I'll do is I'll go through the pictures with a software program that I've been using for years, and it's called VuePrint Pro, and I don't know what I would do without this program. It's really old. I actually paid for it. You can get it free online now, and it comes with a password. But I don't know if it's been updated. The one annoying thing is now that, with newer Windows, in the old Windows, once you put your password in, it remembered it and you never had to enter it again. Now, with the newer Windows, every time I open it, I have to enter the password. So that's one annoying thing, but still, it's worth it because I can do so much with this program. So there it is, VuePrint 8.0 Pro 32 edition. So I have to put in the password. Okay, and so that opens up the image, and then there's a lot of things that I can do just using the shortcuts on the keyboard. So space bar, you go forward, backspace, you go back. And the great thing about this is that I can go through my pictures and decide which ones I want to use. So I can hit, I'm obviously not going to use this one because the comet is there behind the cloud. So I can hit delete and enter, and then that will delete that image, which is why I'm working with a copy folder and not the originals. So this one's obviously bad, so delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter. There's the comet, but still not a good picture because it's still twilight, and keyboard shortcut, hit the N key and it brings up your EXIF information. So it tells you here the camera. This was a Canon Rebel T6. The exposure time was 2.5 seconds, f 1.8, focal length 50 millimeters. My ISO setting was 800. So that's really nice. You can just hit the N to bring up that stuff. So this one here is a short exposure, only 2.5 seconds, and low ISO. It's only 800 there. So the comet is really dim in that picture because it's still at twilight, so I can't do full exposures yet. So we'll delete that one. Clouds. So here's the comet here. It's starting to get better. This is still, so that's 6 seconds, but it's still ISO 800. So we'll delete that one. There, now it's getting better. So I probably increased the ISO. Yeah, I'm up to 1600 ISO now. And 6 second exposure. So I'll keep that one. So instead of hitting delete, I'll just hit the space bar. And that one's okay. So space bar, space bar. That one's good. Ooh, so I think I've increased the ISO here. Yeah, so I'm up to 3200 ISO now. And so the point here is that I'm going to go through the images to pick which ones I want to keep, because you see right here there's a cloud coming in. It was really cloudy last night, so if I wanted to delete that one, I just hit delete and enter. Yeah, okay, so the cloud is totally covering the comet except for the head right there, so I'll delete that one. And so I'll keep doing this, going through all the images until I come up with the ones that I want to use to stack, and that's what I'm going to show you next. So I end up with 25 images that I'm going to use. So there's 25 pictures that I'm going to use to stack. And so now the next thing that I'm going to do is darks. So a lot of cameras nowadays will do this for you automatically. There are two things that it'll do automatically. If it senses that you're using a high ISO setting, like probably above 800 ISO, it will automatically do a dark frame for you and subtract, because when you use high ISO you get hot pixel noise, and so it'll automatically subtract that for you. And then also when you're doing long exposures, because you're having the sensor on for a long time, the pixels will become hot, and then you'll end up with random pixels that aren't supposed to be there, and they show up as either red, blue, or white pixels. And when you're doing astronomy pictures, sometimes it can kind of look cool because it looks like extra stars in the photograph, but if you're trying to take a true picture, you don't want those in there. And so it'll automatically take a dark frame, which is basically a picture where it's not allowing the light to come into the picture, but taking a picture for the same amount of time in order to expose those bad pixels. And then when you take your picture, so you take your picture, let's say for like a 15-second exposure, then it will take a 15-second exposure without allowing light to come in, and then it'll take that second picture and subtract it from the first picture in order to subtract those bad pixels out of your picture. The bad thing about that is that it then takes double the download time for your camera. So it used to drive me crazy that I would take a picture and then it wouldn't allow me to take a picture for, like if I did a 15-second exposure, it wouldn't let me take another picture until another 15-second after that, because it was busy taking that other picture and subtracting it. But you can turn that feature off, and then what you can do is that at some point in your photo session, take what we call a dark frame, which is you just take like the lens cap and put it on your camera lens, and then take a photograph for the same amount of time. So if you're doing 15 exposures, you want to take a dark frame with an exposure in 15 seconds, and with the lens cap on, and then just keep that dark frame, and then you can use that one single dark frame to subtract it from all of your other pictures. And so here are the dark frames that I took. I took 2 of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the dark frame that I took with the lens cap on and open that up in Photoshop. And like I said, I use old software, so this is Photoshop CS2. Still works. I don't have to pay for another one, and I don't have to relearn a new software and learn where all the buttons are and what the tricks are. So there we go. You can see that this is the picture with the lens cap on, and it's totally blank, but it's not. I don't know if you'll be able to see this from, I'm recording this with a GoPro, but you'll see that there are hot pixels in there. There's a white one, and then there was a blue one over to the left. Right there, there's a blue one. And so those are bad pixels. Not bad, I mean, it's just, you know, they got hot from the long exposure, and then but you don't want those in your picture, so you want to subtract those. So you take that dark frame, and then you open up one of your pictures that you want to subtract that from. So let's go to the 25 pictures that I had selected, and we'll take one of those images. And so you open the actions, and then you're going to create a new file. So you hit the, you're going to create a new action, and so call this dark one, and then hit record. And so now every action that you do, it's going to record that as a process. So you want to go to image, apply image, and you want to select that dark frame and subtract. And so now when you hit preview, you'll notice that there's just a slight change in the picture. So what it's doing is it's subtracting those hot pixels and any other bias that was in there. So you'll see down here at the bottom where it's lighter here, and then when you hit preview, it gets a little bit darker. And so it's hit OK, and then you want to save that. Save as, I'll call it D for dark, and then a T for test. Save. OK. And then delete. So you see your actions over here. So you've got your apply image, your save, and delete. So close, and then you'll stop recording. So now go over to File and select Automate. Automate Batch. And then you're going to select a folder that you're going to be that has the images in that you want to subtract the dark frame from. So there's the 25. So we'll be getting them from there. And then choose a folder that they're going to go to. And so I've created a folder inside that folder that's named dark. And override save action, so it's going to use the same type of save command that you used when you recorded the process. And then the file name, so I've already done this once, so I named it D, so this time I'm going to name it D2. And then OK. And now it's going to run through those processes. So over here on the right, you can see that it's doing apply image, save, close, apply image, save, close. And so the great thing about the close is that it doesn't keep your windows open, which ends up, you know, using up all your memory with all of these opened images. So once it's done with an image, it'll close it and then open the next one. And so this is doing 25 images, so this will take a little while. And it's doing it faster than the image is even loading on the screen. Normally you'd see the image there, but I think I might need to empty my trash. Okay, so now it's done. So it's subtracted those dark frames and saved them and closed them, and so now we're back to the original dark frame. And so we're done with that. We don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. So now the next thing is now that we have all of those images that have been corrected by subtracting the dark frames, now we're going to stack those 25 images. So we're going to use another software that is actually on an older computer, which I'm going to bring over now. Okay, so I brought over the older computer. This is an old Dell Inspiron running Windows 98. No, Windows XP Service Package 2. And so I've got my 25 pictures that I've subtracted the dark frame from. And we're going to use this program over here at Images Plus from about 2004. So you go to File, select Image File Operations, select Align Files, and select Translate, Scale, and Rotate. And then select the images from the folder and open. Okay, so on the alignment method we're going to pick centroid. So we're going to be picking stars, and it will automatically know to center on the center of the star. So it'll measure, you know, where the hot point is, the brightest point in the star. And you have 3 or 4 selections here. Translate only. So if you're going to align, if you're going to only use one star to align all the images on, if you had a really good tripod and there was no motion, that one's okay. Translate and rotate, you can use 2 stars on either side of the image in order to make sure that everything lines up. And then there's translate, scale, and rotate. So the scale portion is if you had pictures from maybe 2 different cameras or 2 different focal lengths and you want to add them together, then it'll also do the scaling. So we're going to do translate and rotate. And so the first image here is your reference image. If for some reason you don't like the placement of where the comet is, you can use these arrows here to pick a different reference image. You'll want to have checked auto advance, so that each time you align on a star, it will then advance to the next image, so you can align on that one. And so we're going to be doing translate and rotate, so we're going to be doing this twice. So the first time we're going to select common core point or star, and then we'll come back and uncheck that and check the other one, common angle. So that'll be our second star. So starting with common core point and star, I've gone through my pictures because there are clouds moving through the field. I wanted to make sure that the 2 stars that I was going to be selecting to align on were visible in every image, because up here in the right there's clouds that come in, and down in the bottom too. So I've selected a star on either side of the comet that are kind of far apart from each other. And you would be tempted to pick a bright star that you'd be able to find every time easily, but you might want to stay away from really bright stars, because then they're fat and they may cover more than 1 pixel, and so the alignment might be a little off because it might not know which of the 2 pixels to align on. So I'm going to pick these a little bit dimmer stars. So I'm going to use, instead of the bright fat star here, I'm going to use the one next to it, and instead of that bright fat one, I'm going to use this one here. So I'm going to start with this one down here. So you see the crosshair, so I can move this around with my mouse and get it in the general area, and then I can use the arrow keys to line it up, and hold down the shift key and then do the left click, and then it advances to the next picture, and line that up again, shift and click, and then each time, because there's motion, because this was on a fixed tripod and the sky is moving, the star is going to be in a slightly different place each time, so you'll want to line that up, shift and click. Shift and click. And it doesn't have to be exact because it's going to be looking for the bright point. I try to make it as exact as possible, but you know, just to help the computer out so that there's no ambiguity. And so the purpose of stacking, you'll get a better quality image. So if you were to take an individual frame here, and these pictures here are like 6-second exposures. And so if you zoom in, you'll see that it's really grainy. And so what stacking does for you is it adds and averages. You can think of every pixel in an image as being information, data. And by adding and averaging, sometimes you can have bad data, especially when you're doing things that are very faint like galaxies, and you can have good data. So the bad data will be random. The good data will always be the same. So when you add an average, you average away the bad data, which averages up the good data. So after you stack several images together, it'll smooth out and bring up the good data. And then when you take that over to Photoshop and you just bring up the levels using curves or levels, then boom, all of that information is there, and you just bring it up and boom, it's there. So now you end up having more good data out of the combination of the 25 or so images than you would have had in a single image. And that allows you to bring up faint details in like the tail of the comet or galaxies or nebulas. Okay, so it's done with the 25 pictures on that star. So you see the red box there, so that's the star that we used there. So now we need to go back over here and unselect common core point or star and select common angle defining point or star. So you're basically just picking another star that you're going to align on, just to make sure that there is no, you know, like if you repositioned your camera, you know, that now it will know. Because if you just aligned on this, there could be some rotation in here as you move the camera on the tripod each time that the comet is setting and you have to readjust the camera. So we're going to select a different star over here so that now we have 2 points to line up on every time. So we're going to select this star here, shift and select. Shift, click. Okay, so now we have the blue square over there. So now we're finished aligning on 2 stars. So over here now we're going to select a line. And so it's going to go through and process all of those. This is going to take a while, so I might cut away and come back. Okay, so the program has finished aligning the images. So the next thing to do is to have it combine the images. So combine aligned, and then I'll name it. I like to include in the name how many images I had in the stack. So I'll add a 25 to that. Make sure you click auto display so that whenever it's done it will display the final image. Up here in the top there are several different selections for ways to combine it. The one that's the default is average, so that's add an average. The one across from it, median, is a popular one for there are tricks that people use for when you stack, especially comet images. The comet is moving against the background stars, so there are tricks that people use where they'll use the final result of the stacked comet, and then they'll go back to one of the single images that has the stars that are just pinpoints, because if you then stack on the comet and you follow the comet, then the stars in the background will obviously be star trails. But if you go back to a single image where there was no star trails, then they'll add the comet on top of that original sky. And so one of the tricks for doing that is to use a median stack. I've tried it, and I've always ended up with stuff in the background that you can still see that doesn't average out. But anyway, so I'm going to use average and go down to the bottom and then click on combine. This process goes a lot faster than the one that we just did, but so now it's going to take those 25 images, now that we have them aligned, and it's going to stack them. So it's going to do the add and average. Okay, so the program has finished stacking the images. A curious thing to note is the edges. I don't know if you can see this. See the corners there where you get these edges where whenever I moved the camera on the tripod, each time that the comet was setting, it reframed the image slightly different, and so you get these edges. So obviously that'll have to be cropped in the final, but there you go. So that's added together. Now something that I'm noticing is how much the comet moved. So you see the stars are all pinpoint stars, no double ups, but in the comet it looks like it has two heads. So that is the motion that the comet made during the time that I did this over the span of about an hour and a half. So that's how much motion the comet had. So what I might need to do is, instead of selecting those 25 images that were sprawled out across that time, is to pick fewer images that are closer together in time. So I'm probably going to have to go back and do that now. And then, luckily I don't have to do the dark frame subtract again. I'll just go through those 25 and just narrow it down. So I'm going to do that next, and then I'll do this whole process over again and get back to you. Actually, I just remembered something. I'm not going to have to do that whole process over again because that program, as it's aligning the images, it actually saves the images. So these are the original images up here that have the D on the end, but in the process of aligning the images, it saves a copy of the image with the prefixed TNRT for translate and rotate. So I have those 25 images that are already aligned there, so I can then just select the images that I want out of those, and I don't have to do that process again of picking the stars and aligning on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back over here to my original images, and I'm looking at the details at the times, and so I see that there's a big gap in the time. So the first image is taken at 8:36 p.m. and then 8:37, 8:42, 8:43, 43, 44, 44, 44, 50, 50, 50, 51, 52, and then there's a big gap to 9:14 and then 9:20 and down to 9:23. So that's why there's the two comet heads, is because there's that big gap in time there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the images that were in that first group from 8:36 to 8:52, and then I'm going to pick those same images out of here, the ones that are already aligned, and then have it just combine those images. So I've then taken those images and put those into a folder and just called it 1. So I'm ending up with, instead of 25 images, I'm going to end up with 14 images. So I'll go back to the program, get rid of that picture, and combine. So we're done. So now over here, for combine, instead of selecting aligned, I think I'm going to select input. Select new input, and then select that folder and select those 14 images. There we go. So now we have 14, so I'm going to name that 14, combine file average 14, auto display is selected, and hit combine. So now it's going to combine those 14 images, and I don't have to go through that process of picking the stars and aligning them again. So it's just done 1 out of 14, so it's going to take a little while, so I'll cut away and come back. 14 of 14, it's about to finish. Alright, here it comes. Boom. Alright, okay. Only one head on the comet this time. Okay, that's much better. So yeah, there was that gap in time because of clouds that were moving through. And so that break in time, I'll just consider the first group, you know, one session, and then the second group a second session. So I could take that second session and then add those together as well as a separate image. So yeah, it came out great this time. The comet has a single head. The stars are all pinpoint. You still have that weird framing where the framing is a little cockeyed from the different times that I've had to move the camera on the tripod as the comet is setting. So when we had the double heads there, that showed the apparent motion of the or the relative motion of the comet to the background stars, because this comet is passing fairly close to Earth, between Earth and the Sun, so it's fairly close, so thus the relative motion is apparent against the background stars. So this is good. These images were all taken within less than 30 minutes, about 30 minutes max from the first to the second one. So there's not that much motion. So this is good. So now we can take this image, this frame here, you might I don't know if you can see at the top, the file name is .fit. So I'm going to save it. I never learned to work with fit images because I never had a laptop that could handle that kind of memory. So I'll save it as a, whoops, no. So file, save copy as. And then instead of saving it as a fit, I'll save it as a bitmap. I could save it as a JPEG, but I figure that bitmap will save it better, so it won't be compressed in the JPEG file. So better. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm thinking that bitmap might be better than JPEG in order to work with as far as not losing data. Okay, so I'm going to save that as a bitmap. Save. And then I'll be able to take that file back over to my other computer that has Photoshop on it and bring up the images. Bring up the levels and curves and things like that, and we'll make it pop. Okay, so we're back over to the Windows 10 laptop. And here are the new files. So there is the fit file and the bitmap. So I'm going to open the bitmap in Photoshop. There it is. Control-0 to embiggen it. Oh wait, that's the bad one. So I don't know if you guys can see that. There's the double heads on the comets. So that's what I was saying. You could actually use the files from that for 2 different sessions and turn it into 2 different images. So that's not the one we want. Let's go find it. Oh, it's in the one file, huh? There we go. So there's the fit, there's the bitmap. Open with Photoshop. There it is. Control-0. And there's the comet. So a single head now. There we go. And we don't have that much motion in the stars. This is aligned on the stars, so the stars should all be nice and round with no elongation because of motion. There is sometimes what I'll do is I'll align all of the images on the stars, and if there's a lot of motion in the comet, what I'll then do is go back and take those images and then align them on the head of the comet. The great thing about that is I don't have to do translate and rotate on that one. I can just do translate, because then every one will be framed up exactly the same, and then the only thing that's moving is the comet. And so then I can just do a single translate alignment on the comet head, and then that will align it true to the comet. And so the comet, which is moving in relation to the background stars, will be stationary, and then in that image the stars will show their motion, so they'll be elongated, but the comet will stay true and to a point. Alright, so the big thing to notice here is the difference in the camera angles each time that I had to move this, because this was not on a tracking mount, this was on a regular tripod, which was stationary. Turn off the AC so it doesn't make noise. So let me show you that. I'll go over to curves and bring up the levels, and then boom, you can see that. See the framing, how each time that I did it, each time that I moved the camera, it was framed slightly different. And so eventually we're going to want to cut that away and crop it. But just to show you, bringing up the levels now. So there's the comet, and so can you see the 2 tails? There's the white dust tail over here, and then straight back there's the blue ion tail there. So see that. So what are we going to do first? So now it's just post-processing. So first thing, because we have those black edges, if you do any kind of auto levels or auto contrast, it will take that into consideration as far as picking your the blacks and whites. So I want to get rid of that. So that'll be the first thing that I'll want to do. And so it's hard to see those edges right now. So what I'll do is I'll go back to curves and bring it up again. Just over curves. And select OK. And then I'll go to the marquee button. And I'll lay the marquee X on the edge. And then hit Control-Alt-Z, or Z if you're British. And then you see that the crosshair is still there, and that'll give me a reference point where to click and drag my marquee, and then go to crop, and crop it, and then Control-0 to embiggen it again, deselect the marquee, image, adjust, curves, we'll bring the curves up to do the other, okay. Bring the marquee over here. That's going to get close to the head of the comet. Control-Alt-Z. Image. Crop. Control-0. Oh, it's already big. Okay. And deselect. Image. Adjust. Curves. So we still got another edge over here on the left. Okay. Control-Alt-Z, image, crop. I think there's still another one over here on the right. Deselect, Control-0, image, adjust, curves. So you see there's still the other edge over here on the left. Okay. Control-Alt-Z, image, adjust, or no, image, crop, deselect. Okay, so now we should have gotten rid of all of those edges. Boom, so no more black edges. So now if you were to do something like auto levels, image, adjust, auto levels. Now, boom, there's a good image right there. I mean, you don't even have to do anything else right there. I usually don't like to use autos, but because the blue ion tail comes out a little purple there, but that gives you an idea. I mean, sometimes that'll be the first thing that I do because you can always undo that, but that'll give you a good idea of what the image can look like. But yeah, big difference. Let me see if I can find. Okay, so this is a single image that's unstacked from that same batch of pictures that I just stacked. So this is a single image, and this one is unprocessed. So here is that same image processed as much as I could to bring out the detail in order to see the ion tail there. And you see how when I brought the levels up and processed it and everything, you see how splotchy that is? You've got purples and greens and browns and reds all in there, and it looks terrible. It looks like it's overstretched. Compared to what I just did now with 14 images. So there it is unprocessed, so already that looks better. And then I haven't gone through the processing yet, but just if I were to do auto levels there. So that compared to this processed image. Big difference. See that? So that's what stacking can do for you. Oh, this one is framed smaller because of that cropping that I had to do, but still, it's worth it. Look at that. Huge difference. So from here, it's just a matter of choice as far as processing. So this was auto levels. I would go through and tinker with it. You can do shadow and highlight. Contrast. Oh, look at that. I don't know, which looks better, that or the auto levels. Select all, edit, copy, Control Z, let's see, history. Go back before that. Let's go auto levels and paste that. Ooh, okay, the background's a lot more purple on that one. So that's auto levels, and there's the one I did manually. So in this case, cropping off those black edges gave Photoshop what it needed in order to do a good job by just doing auto levels. Otherwise, it's going to take me a lot of tinkering to go through here. But anyway, so I'll leave it at that. It's too bad that this isn't like a magnificent picture to end on, because the night that I took these pictures, the conditions were terrible. We had haze that was so bad that you couldn't see the mountains. It was very hot and humid. I even got rained on a couple of times. There was clouds moving through the pictures, and that's why I had that gap in the time. So the conditions were just terrible. But, you know, because I was able to get these 14 pictures, and the exposure time on these pictures were 6 seconds. So 14 6-second exposures, and being able to combine them by stacking them, I was able to get this image. Imagine if it would have been a clear night.